Okay, hi everyone. So the team is at it again. We're learning or revising. So this whole video is going to focus on the tropical rainforest. So I've made a video previously on the savanna grassland. This video is going to focus just on the tropical rainforest. So we're going to have a really quick intro to the tropical rainforest. Then we're going to talk about the nutrient cycle in the tropical rainforest, the water cycle, carbon cycle, and then the impacts of human activity on the tropical rainforest before sustainable uses of the tropical rainforest. And I've got to be honest, I've just opened a new pack of dry wipes. Look at the quality of this dry wipe here. Look at that. Good quality dry wipe. So we'll move on to number one, a little intro into the tropical rainforest. Okay, so this is number one, intro to the tropical rainforest. Look at that pen. Wow. Intro to the tropical rainforest. Now, I'm hoping this is going to be fairly straightforward for you because we've done a lot on the tropical rainforest, but in terms of location, it's found along the equator. So if you're going to talk about the tropical rainforest and you're going to locate it, it's found along the equator. Okay? It's got the highest volume of plants and animals than any other biome. So highest volume of plants and animals than any other biome. Okay, and it also has a continuous growing season all year round. So it has a continuous growing season. Not to touch on it already, but of course that links to the carbon cycle, because the trees, the plants, the plants take in carbon and store it, and it's got the highest volume of plants and it's got a continuous growing season, so it must be a massive store of carbon. Okay, so that's just a little overview found along the equator. Section 1 done. Okay, so section 2 is the nutrient cycle in the tropical rainforest. Okay, so the nutrient cycle of the tropical rainforest. Now again, obviously I treat you to some exceptional diagrams, and this is going to be, again, a star, I'm sure. Obviously the tropical rainforest, lots of sunshine along the equator, linked to the intertropical convergence zone. Now, dense, we've got our emergent layer, our canopy, our shrub layer. Okay, so this is my diagram of the rainforest, if you hadn't already guessed that from this exceptional drawing. We've got some shrubs. Look at that, what a great diagram. So, the orange is going to represent the soil. Okay, orange is the soil. There we are. Now, in terms of the nutrient cycle then, because there is so much vegetation, 80% of nutrients are stored in the vegetation. So within the tropical rainforest, 80% of the nutrients are stored in the vegetation, okay, the plants. And then 20% is stored in the soil. So 20% of the nutrients are stored in the soil. Right, now obviously it's extremely hot, really, really hot. So we have, heat. Wow, it's hot, 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 hot. I nearly sang feeling hot, 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 and I'm really glad that I didn't. So when the plants die, they go to the floor as leaf litter, okay? Draw some leaves signifying the leaf litter. So plants die, trees die, they fall to the soil as leaf litter. Huge amount of plants, so huge amount of leaf litter, right? So leaf litter. Now because, whoops, leaf litter. Oh, that looks great, doesn't it? Leaf litter. Now because it's really, really hot, it decomposes, the leaf litter decomposes really quickly, really fast, and then the nutrients are absorbed or taken up by the plants, by their root systems. Okay, so what happens? The leaves fall to the ground. Because it's so hot, they decompose really quickly, break down really quickly, and they're absorbed, taken in by the plant's roots. Okay, so they don't stay in the soil for very long. So they're not here for long in the soil, because there is so much competition, so many plants' roots fighting to take them up from the soil, that actually by the time they've been decomposed and the leaf litter into the soil, they're very quickly taken up by the plant roots. Okay, so that really is the nutrient cycle. One little additional bit to the nutrient cycle is actually when consumers eat the plants and then are eating and eating and eating, etc. Here's some sort of animal. Decide what you will with the animal, but some sort of animal. Now, when the animal dies also, oh gosh, how am I going to draw this? Dies. There's a skeleton there. Also, the decomposers will decompose that body too, and those nutrients will go back into the soil. But again, the nutrients won't stay in the soil for long because they're taken up. So the nutrient cycle, the majority is in the vegetation. When the leaf litter or the animals die, they're on the forest floor, they get decomposed very quickly because it's so hot. And they're not stored in the soil for long because the roots take them up into the trees and there's so much competition for them. Okay, so that's the nutrient cycle. Well done. Right, section 3 then is on the water cycle in the tropical rainforest. Okay, water cycle in the tropical rainforest. Now, it's that classic again, oh, don't like that. It's that classic again of convectional rainfall. So the water cycle within the tropical rainforest is surrounding convectional rainfall. This singular tree is going to represent the whole tropical rainforest now. So I'll just briefly go over this again because I feel like I've done it quite a few times in the other videos already, but it's really hot, as we know. Whoopsie. So that heat heats up the land, heats up the trees, and you get increased you get low pressure, you get rising, and that rising encourages evaporation and transpiration, where trees give off water. Okay, you could call it all evapotranspiration. So the ground, it's all heated up by the sun, and it leads to increased evaporation and transpiration, which then, as it rises, it cools, condenses, forms clouds, and it rains. Okay, so that's the water cycle in a nutshell in the tropical rainforest. Now, in between the rainfall, which is a daily occurrence, but in between it, the roots take up the water from the ground, and also, so roots, and also trees intercept the water. So in between the daily rain, the trees are a good store of water because they take it up from the roots and they intercept it from the rain. Okay, so water cycle of the tropical rainforest there. Okay, section 4 then is on the carbon cycle. Now, the tropical rainforest is critical in the carbon cycle. The tropical rainforest is critical in the carbon cycle. That is because the tropical rainforest is such a huge store of carbon. Okay, a huge store of carbon, and obviously for us, carbon is a greenhouse gas. So we want as much of that out of the atmosphere as we can, and that's what the tropical rainforests do for us. We call them the lungs of the planet, but they take in the carbon. So if you think That, again, brilliant diagram here of a tropical rainforest, but we have our canopy, we've got our under canopy and our shrubs here, canopy layer, emergent layer, right? You think just how dense the rainforest is with vegetation, right? Well, all of this through photosynthesis takes in and then afterwards stores carbon. So they take in carbon dioxide, as we know, CO2, and give off oxygen. In this case then, they take in the carbon and they store it. And because there is so much vegetation over the tropical rainforest, it is a huge store of carbon, which makes it so important to us. Now, when we chop the trees down, like the geniuses that we are, says me using paper, but I will recycle it. When we chop the trees down, or when the trees fall down, or when the leaves fall down and form the leaf litter at the bottom, all of this is decomposed, right? All of this is decomposed, it's broken down. And when that happens, it releases the carbon, so it releases the carbon back to the atmosphere. Okay, so when the trees naturally or due to human interference fall or start decomposing, it releases the carbon back to the atmosphere. Okay, now that could also happen if our unidentified animal eats the plants, and then respiration can also release carbon back to the atmosphere. And similarly, if the animal were to die, its decomposition would too. Okay, so that's the carbon cycle. The soil does also store carbon as well, because some of the carbon from here, from these decomposers, will go into the soil, so the soil will store a little bit of carbon too. But the tropical rainforest is so important as a carbon store. But then when they decompose, it's released back to the atmosphere. Within section 5 then, the impacts of human activity on the tropical rainforest. Obviously you're going to know a lot about this already, deforestation. Obviously we're chopping down the trees, deforestation. But for impacts of human activity on the tropical rainforest, we're first of all going to look at why we're destroying it. Then we're going to look at any minimal positives, and then we're going to look at the negatives, okay? So we're going to try and weigh it up. So first of all, it's important to remember, or I say important to remember, it doesn't matter if you forget this, but it's a big shocker, really, that 50% of the tropical rainforest has been destroyed in the last 100 years. So we're 50% down already, and we know it's so important for us. It's the lungs of the planet. So why has that happened? Okay, well, one reason is farming, right? People use the tropical rainforest for cattle ranching and crops. Okay, so they use it to put their cattle on, it's called cattle ranching. They also use it to plant their crops. So that's one reason. Now, to do that, they may just mass deforest, right? So they may just cut everything down to use it, deforestation. But another thing they may do is slash and burn, which if you've watched the other videos, we've discussed already. But another thing they may do is slash and burn. Now, it is a lot of the time it's subsistence farmers doing this, but what will happen is, say this is the tropical rainforest, okay, obviously not to scale. Subsistence farmers are farmers who grow crops to eat. Now, what they will do is they will slash and burn, they will chop down and burn this area of the forest. And then they will grow their crops there. Okay. So once it's cleared away, they'll grow their crops there. Now you can only grow that for so long because the nutrient cycle is going to be destroyed. So then they need to move. So they burn this bit, grow the crops here. And then the nutrient cycle is going to be destroyed after a while, so they'll go here. And you get the idea of what's going on. They are spreading, they're slash and burning, they're spreading across the tropical rainforest, destroying it as they go, basically. Right. Another reason is mining. For example, you can get a lot of iron ore out of the tropical rainforest. We use the tropical rainforest for a huge amount of our materials. The iPhone, parts in the tropical rainforest. Okay? Roads and railways, we cut straight through them to link up places, but also to get to the mines, and also to get to the dams that we've created, which will make hydroelectric power. And if you think about it, you have to destroy the tropical rainforest to get to the dam to where you want to build it in the first place. But what will happen is they will build a dam here, and to do that, they're going to have to flood all of this. So they'll chop all the trees down behind it, and then they will need their road to bring their workers and all the rest of it in. Once you've built a road into the rainforest, everyone can access it then, especially loggers. So logging, actually cutting the trees down to use for wood, paper, all the rest of it. So logging is another one, and once you've got the roads in there, it all increases. So that's the ways that we destroy it. It's not all of them, but it's some of them, the ways that we destroy it. Then, in terms of what's good about this, not a lot, and what's bad about this, but we would need to weigh up, obviously, if it was to what extent you agree or justify your opinion. Okay, so a good thing is the money. It helps development, and you'll often find that the countries that the tropical rainforest in are low income or newly industrializing, and therefore it helps development. Now that is obviously going to mean the better quality of life for people. If they've got more money, then they can get education, medicine, etc. Also it creates jobs. So jobs are created in these industries, and it actually provides our goods. It provides food, goods, paper, tables, all the rest of it. Okay. On the flip side, though, native people lose their homes. Okay, lose their homes, culture. Everything, their way of life is destroyed. So we've all seen the documentaries on the tribes in the tropical rainforest. I mean, whole tribes have been wiped out by the flu when people have discovered them, because then they don't have an immune system for the flu. But due to deforestation, they lose their homes, their culture, their way of life, everything. Not only does that happen with native people, but also plants and animals. They lose their homes, their landscape, and eventually, unfortunately, some of those will become extinct. And same as there could have been medicine, there could have been cures in those forests, and we've chopped them down. Species have gone extinct, and there could have been cures in there that we could have used to help people. Not only that, but there'd be a change to climate. At the end of the day, the tropical rainforest is called the lungs of our planet. I saw something the other day that said if trees gave off free Wi-Fi, we'd plant them everywhere, but instead they give off free oxygen and we chop them down. So the changes to climate. Now, also, it can increase, the soil can lead to, if there's no trees protecting the soil can be leached of all its nutrients. There can be gully erosion, okay, where the water then creates little streams, little rivers through the soil, and quicker and quicker and quicker is taking the soil away. Ultimately, the rainforest never fully recovers from this. There are loads more negatives than that though. There are loads, but I'll pause it there. Okay, but there are loads more that you can talk about. Okay, the last part of this video then is sustainable use of the tropical rainforest. Okay, so sustainable use of the tropical rainforest. What can we do to use the tropical rainforest now, but make sure that it lasts for the future generations? Now, there's more than what I'm going to go through with you, but I'm just going to go through a few examples. The first one being agroforestry. Now, you're about to see some brilliant diagrams again, if I do say so myself, blow your minds. Now, what agroforestry means is that you try to leave the trees as they are, so you don't necessarily cut the trees down, but you grow your crops. What colour am I going to have for my crops? Shall I have? I can't have green because I've already got that. Orange is a bit sinister. I'll have blue crops, right? So you grow your crops in between the trees. So these will all be crop growth here, right? Told you this is going to be a good diagram. Look at that. So this is all the crops being grown here in between the trees. So agroforestry, grow crops between trees. Now, that is obviously good because you're not chopping the trees down. Sorry, the trees remain where they are. It's also good because you're getting the crops from in between. So you're getting the best of both worlds. You leave the trees and you get the crops. On the other hand, it's obviously on a far smaller scale than some would like. You're not going to be able to get machinery in there, and you're not going to be able to machine these crops. You're going to have to do it on a small scale. So you might be a subsistence farmer and you might just sell a little bit for money, but this isn't going to be mass production. But it does solve the problem. Okay? Now, another option may be selective logging. Okay, selective logging. Now what this means is, here's your trees here, okay? Now, you say you are only going to chop down a certain species of tree or a certain age of tree. So say this tree is old and this tree is old. You cut those down, but all the younger trees, you leave them to grow up. Okay, so selective logging means you only cut down trees that are a certain age or species. So only cut down trees that are a certain age or species. And that means that you leave the younger trees to grow up and store carbon and reproduce. So you're but it does mean it's on a smaller scale, and it's hard to do that because you're not going to be able to get your machinery in anymore. And they take these down en masse, these trees, with huge machinery, and they're not going to be able to do that in this case. Now, you might have a forest reserve. Oh, forest reserve. That is literally going to be protected area of forest. Probably won't allow any deforestation, any logging or anything. It's just purely protected. Again, that has positives and negatives, as you can imagine. You might encourage ecotourism. Now, ecotourism is tourism that looks after the environment. So you go and live, you wouldn't stay in a massive hotel with a big swimming pool. You would stay with the people, you would use eco-friendly products, and you would look after the environment while you're there. So that's good because the local people would still be getting jobs and money. Okay, it's good because the local people would still be getting jobs and money. Now, another one is wildlife corridors. Okay, wildlife corridors. You're going to have to use your imagination here for wildlife corridors. Imagine that the whiteboard is the tropical rainforest, okay? So the whole whiteboard is the tropical rainforest. And in reality, what has happened is in all the different countries, they've deforested different sections, and we've ended up in life with a tropical rainforest. There's a bit over there, there's a bit down there, little bit there, little bit there, some there. We've ended up with a very patchy tropical rainforest. If you've watched Over the Hedge, they go into this. But you've got a patch of tropical rainforest there, patch there. Now, that means that species, they may have stored their food for the winter there. Their mating patterns may mean that they need to meet mates over there. This is a nightmare for the animals of the tropical rainforest and is one of the reasons why they become extinct. So building wildlife corridors is actually planting trees to connect up the patches of the tropical rainforest, okay? It's actually planting trees to patch up the areas of the tropical rainforest. So now animals can still go through and find mates to reproduce, they can find food, so on and so forth. So that's wildlife corridors, okay? So, wildlife corridors, oops. So they link areas of the forest with trees by planting trees. Now, again, positives and negatives. It's going to require countries to work together properly. They're probably not going to make money from doing it either. It's just good for the environment. Now, the last one that we're going to talk about is the debt for nature swap. Now, what this means is a lot of the countries that the tropical rainforest are in are LICs, okay? Now, they owe a lot of money to HICs. The idea is here that the LIC will not pay some of their debt. Instead, they will plant trees or protect trees. So what happens is the LIC will lose part of its debt, but in turn will protect an area of forest. So they lose debt by protecting the tropical rainforest. Okay? Now, like I always say, if you need anything, just email, but the effort you're putting into this revision, I can't praise you enough. Well done, everyone. Well done, team.